So what's the problem with you then?
Every time he opens his mouth and say something about Marcel, he gonna be talking about Martell.
I never say
I'm
about
supposed
you.
to tell
What you
about what
talking about?
Marcel knows about Martell. I'm telling you right now, I don't have no respect for you.
Okay, you it's like dude go, and it's like we together. I'm not saying nothing about it.
Oh, we've never
You
met
fucking
together.
together.
Where the pictures at, Martell? Let me see.
Cheers to my boy. Go ahead and say your shit.
Keep going, big fella. Keep going, big fella.
I'm done.
Okay, hold on.
Martell Holt has finally reached a moment he can't talk his way out of. At 42, the mask is slipping, the walls are cracking, and for the first time in a long time, it feels like he's not trying to control the story anymore. He's just living in it. And that's exactly why people are paying closer attention now than ever before. Because this time, it's different. This isn't another heated argument, another defensive interview, or another moment where he points fingers and shifts blame. This feels quieter, more raw, almost uncomfortable to watch. The kind of moment where a person stops performing and starts revealing. And fans are noticing it immediately. They're saying the same thing over and over again.
Part of harassing communications was you sending a picture.
No.
That makes me lose respect for Martell.
If it was true.
I assumed it was true.
You assumed it
now
was?
that he's saying it is not true, how do you feel about it?
I don't know if I would believe Martell.
You don't believe me? I've been a liar about things that we've been through over the years, and a lot of experiences that you've had with me. I've been a liar.
This is the real Martell, not the confident businessman, not the polished TV personality, not the man who always had an answer ready when things got messy, but a man who looks tired, a man who sounds reflective, a man who might finally be realizing how much he's lost. And what nobody expected was that instead of doubling down like he usually does, Martell started opening up. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough to make people pause and wonder if this could be the beginning of something real. But here's the twist. The more he talks, the more it becomes clear that this isn't just about growth. It's about regret, it's about consequences, and it's about a man who may finally be coming face to face with the reality he spent years avoiding.
Backwards, allegedly.
This is so sad.
It seems.
No, it's not. It's
Hold
so
on,
real.
hold on.
You're a pathetic.
Martell Melody,
you are.
hold on,
You little ugly
please,
shit.
please,
Okay.
hold on.
Okay.
Destiny.
I don't want nothing and don't need nothing. God is my source and has been since I left your dusty ass.
Okay.
To understand why this moment feels so heavy, you have to go back to where it all started. Before the headlines, before the arguments, before the public breakdown of his marriage, Martell Holt was living a life that many people admired. He had a strong presence, a growing business, and a family that looked solid from the outside. With Melody by his side, they appeared to be building something meaningful together, something stable, something inspiring. People saw ambition, they saw partnership, they saw a couple that seemed to balance each other out. But behind that image, things weren't as perfect as they looked. There were cracks forming long before anyone on the outside noticed. Small tensions, unspoken frustrations, and emotional distance that slowly started to grow. And instead of addressing those issues head-on, Martell made a decision that would change everything. He stepped outside of his marriage. And it wasn't just a one-time mistake, it became a pattern, a repeated choice that chipped away at the trust, respect, and foundation of his family. Even when there were chances to stop, to fix, to choose differently, he didn't.
Why he would say that, why he would throw me in the middle of that. And so him and Marcel was going back and forth. Unfortunately, edits didn't show what Marcel said, but they showed what what Martell said. So you guys really didn't see or hear everything that Marcel was saying to him, because Marcel was dropping receipts and he was naming guys who Martell have slept with in Huntsville.
Is that okay? We gotta say a legend.
No, it's not a legend. It's not a
I mean,
legend.
this is.
Because Carlos, let me tell you. So
ahead.
you guys have known. You said that I've been quiet. I know a lot more than what I say. And for years, Marcel have been like, no, T, don't do that. No, T, don't do that. And we really have been trying not to go there with Martell because
That's where everything started unraveling. Because once the truth came out, there was no going back. The image people believed in started to fall apart, and Martell went from being admired to being questioned. Every move he made after that was under a microscope, and instead of slowing down and reflecting, he reacted. He defended himself, he explained, he justified, he tried to reshape the narrative in a way that didn't fully hold him accountable. And for a while, that approach kept the focus scattered. Some people believed him, others didn't. But over time, the pattern became too clear to ignore. Every time things got uncomfortable, Martell would push the attention somewhere else. Every time he was challenged, he would respond with frustration instead of understanding. And every time he had an opportunity to grow publicly, he seemed to fall back into the same cycle. And that cycle became exhausting, not just for the people around him, but for the audience watching. Because people weren't just seeing mistakes anymore, they were seeing a refusal to change.
I just hate that this narrative is going around and, bloggers picking things up and, certain people trying to destroy me. But it's not going to happen, though. I'm not going to allow it to happen.
Then came the co-parenting struggles. The tension didn't end with the marriage. It carried over into how they navigated life after the separation. Disagreements, emotional moments, and public exchanges kept the situation alive long after it should have settled. And every time Martell spoke, it felt like he was still fighting the same battle, still trying to prove something, still trying to win something, still trying to control how people saw him. But here's where things start to shift.
I also did an interview out here saying, I'm like, why would this dude even fix his mouth to say something about much?
Recently, something about Martell's tone has changed. It's subtle, but it's there. The energy isn't as aggressive, the words aren't as sharp, and for the first time, there are moments where he doesn't sound like he's arguing. He sounds like he's thinking. And that's what caught people off guard, because no one expected him to slow down like this. In one of his recent appearances, Martell didn't come in with the usual fire. He didn't immediately defend himself or redirect the conversation. Instead, he paused, he listened, and when he spoke, there was something different in his voice. He talked about feeling misunderstood. He talked about the pressure of being constantly judged. But more importantly, he started hinting at something deeper, something he hasn't fully said out loud before. Regret. Not in a dramatic, attention-seeking way, not in a way that felt rehearsed, but in small, quiet moments where his words didn't fully hide what he was feeling. And fans picked up on it instantly. They noticed the hesitation, the pauses, the way he chose his words more carefully, the way he didn't immediately blame someone else. And that's when the conversation started changing. People weren't just criticizing him anymore. They were analyzing him, trying to figure out if this was real growth or just another phase. But here's the twist that made everything even more intense. The more honest Martell became, the more his past behavior started catching up with him in a different way. Because now, instead of arguing against accusations, he's sitting in the consequences of them. He admitted that losing his family hit him harder than he expected. He admitted that things didn't turn out the way he thought they would. And in that moment, it became clear that for years, Martell believed he could manage the fallout of his decisions, that he could fix things later, that he could maintain control no matter what happened. But reality doesn't work like that. And at 42, he's starting to see that. But what nobody expected was how emotional that realization would look. Because behind the calm tone and reflective words, there's still a lot of unresolved pain. You can hear it when he talks about his children. You can see it when conversations shift toward what his life used to be. There's a sense that he's looking back more than he's looking forward. And that's where things get complicated. Because opening up doesn't erase the past. It doesn't fix the damage. It doesn't automatically rebuild trust. And people are very aware of that. Some fans are supportive. They see this as a step in the right direction. They believe growth takes time, and this could be the beginning of a new chapter for him. But others aren't convinced. They feel like they've seen this before, moments where it seemed like Martell was about to change, only for him to fall back into old habits. And honestly, that doubt is understandable, because patterns don't break overnight. But here's what makes this moment feel different from everything that came before. Martell isn't fighting as hard anymore. He's not trying to win every conversation. He's not trying to dominate every narrative. And that shift alone is making people look at him differently. It doesn't mean everything is fixed. It doesn't mean he's fully healed. But it does mean something is changing. And sometimes that's where real growth begins. Still, the emotional weight of everything he's been through hasn't disappeared. It's affecting his relationships. It's affecting how people interact with him. And most importantly, it's affecting how he sees himself. Because when the noise dies down and the cameras aren't rolling, he's left with the reality of what happened. A broken marriage, a complicated co-parenting dynamic, a reputation that took a major hit. And no matter how much time passes, those things don't just fade away. They stay, and they shape everything that comes next. That's why this moment matters so much, because for the first time, it feels like Martell is starting to understand that the biggest battle he's been fighting isn't with other people. It's with himself. The need for control, the fear of being seen as the villain, the struggle to accept responsibility without trying to soften it. Those are the things that have followed him through every stage of this journey. And now, at 42, he's standing in a place where he can't outrun them anymore. He has to face them. And that's not easy to watch, because growth isn't always inspiring. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it looks like a person realizing things they wish they had understood years ago. And that's exactly what this feels like. But here's the part that really makes you think. What happens next? Because opening up is one thing, changing is another. Martell is at a crossroads right now. He can take this moment, this clarity, this reflection, this honesty, and build something new from it. He can choose to do the work, to rebuild relationships where possible, and to become a better version of himself moving forward. Or he can slip back into old patterns, back into defensiveness, back into the cycle that brought him here in the first place. And the truth is, no one knows which path he's going to choose. Not the fans, not the people around him, maybe not even him. But one thing is clear, the version of Martell Holt people are seeing right now feels more real than anything they've seen before. Not perfect, not polished, not controlled, just real. And sometimes that's the hardest version of yourself to show, because it means letting people see the mistakes, the regrets, the parts of your story you can't rewrite. But it also means there's a chance, just a chance, that something better can come from it. So now the question isn't whether Martell has been exposed. That already happened. The real question is whether he's finally ready to grow from it. Because at 42, the excuses don't carry the same weight anymore. The patterns don't get the same patience, and the choices he makes from this point forward will define how his story ends. And people are watching, not for drama this time, but for change. So what do you think? Are we finally seeing the real Martell Holt, or is this just another chapter in a story that hasn't quite learned its lesson yet?